Venuta la sera. Così inizia il Vangelo che abbiamo ascoltato.
When evening had come, the gospel passage we have just heard begins like this. For weeks now it has been evening. Thick darkness has gathered over our squares, our streets, and our cities. It has taken over our lives, filling everything with a deafening silence and a distressing void that stops everything as it passes by. We feel it in the air. We notice in people's gestures. Their glances give them away. We find ourselves afraid and lost. Like the disciples in the Gospel, we were caught off guard by an unexpected turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. All of us are on this boat, just like those disciples who spoke anxiously with one voice, saying, "We are perishing." So we too have realized that we cannot go on thinking of ourselves, but only together can we do this.
È facile ritrovarci in questo racconto. Quello che risulta difficile è capire l'atteggiamento di Gesù. Mentre I discepoli sono naturalmente
It's easy to recognize ourselves in this story. What is harder to understand is Jesus' attitude. While his disciples are quite naturally alarmed and desperate, he stands in the stern, in the part of the boat that sinks first. And what does he do? In spite of the tempest, he sleeps on soundly, trusting in the Father. This is the only time in the Gospels we see Jesus sleeping. When he wakes up, after calming the wind and the waters, he turns to the disciples in a reproaching voice. Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?
Cerchiamo di comprendere. In che cosa consiste la mancanza di fede?
Let's try to understand. In what does the lack of the disciples' faith consist as contrasted with Jesus' trust? They had not stopped believing in him. In fact, they called on him. But we see how they call on him. Teacher, do you not care if we perish? Do you not care?
Pensano che Gesù si disinteressi di loro.
They think that Jesus is not interested in them, does not care about them. One of the things that hurts us and our families most is when we hear it said, "Do you not care about me?" It's a phrase that wounds and unleashes storms in our hearts. It would have shaken Jesus too, because he, more than anyone, cares about us. Indeed, once they have called on him, he saves his disciples from their discouragement.
La tempestà smaschera la nostra vulnerabilità.
The storm exposes our vulnerability and uncovers those false and superfluous certainties around which we have constructed our daily schedules, our projects, our habits, and priorities. It shows us how we have allowed ourselves to become dull and feeble, the very things that nourish, sustain, and strengthen our lives and our communities. The tempest lays bare all our prepackaged ideas and forgetfulness of what nourishes our people's souls. All those attempts that anesthetize us with ways of thinking and acting that supposedly save us, but instead prove incapable of putting us in touch with our roots and keeping alive the memory of those who have gone before us. We deprive ourselves of the antibodies we need to confront adversity. In this storm, the facade of those stereotypes with which we camouflage our egos, always worrying about our image, has fallen away, uncovering once more that blessed common belonging of which we cannot be deprived, our belonging as brothers and sisters.
Perché avete paura? Non avete ancora fede?
Why are you afraid? Have you yet no
Signore,
faith?
la tua parola stasera ci colpisce e ci riguarda tutti.
Your word this evening strikes us
In questo nostro mondo
and
che
regards
tu ami più di
all of
noi,
us in this
siamo
world that
andati
you
avanti
love
a
more than
tutta
we do.
velocità,
We have gone ahead at
sentendoci
breakneck
forti e capaci
speed,
di tutto,
feeling powerful
avidi di guadagno.
and able to do
Siamo
anything,
lasciati
greedy for
assorbire dalle
profit.
poste
We let
e
ourselves
cattonare
get
dalla fretta.
caught up in things
Non ci
and
siamo
lured away
fermati
by haste.
davanti ai tuoi richiami.
We have not
Non ci
stopped
siamo
before your
rilessati
reproach to us.
di fronte
We
a
were not
guerre
shaken
e
awake
ingiustizie
by wars
planetari.
or injustice across
Non
the
abbiamo
world,
ascoltato
nor
il
did we
grido dei
listen
poveri
to the cry of the
e del
poor
nostro pianeta
or
gravemente
of our
malato.
gravely ailing
Abbiamo
planet.
proseguito imperterriti,
We carried on
pensando
regardless,
di rimanere sempre sani
thinking we would stay
in un mondo
healthy
malato.
in a world that was sick.
Ora, mentre stiamo in mare agitato,
Now that we are in a stormy sea, we implore you,
Signore,
wake up, Lord.
perché avete paura?
Why are you afraid?
Non avete ancora fede?
Have you yet no faith?
Signore, ci rivolgi un appello alla fede.
Lord, you are calling to us, calling us to faith, which is not so much believing that you exist, but coming to you and trusting in you. This Lent, your call reverberates urgently. Be converted. Return to me with all your heart. You are calling us to seize this time of trial as a time of choosing, a moment of decision. It is not the time of your judgment, but of our judgment. A time to choose what matters and what passes away. A time to separate what is necessary from what is not. It is a time to get our lives back on track with regard to you, Lord, and to others. We can look to so many exemplary companions for the journey who, even though fearful, have reacted by giving their lives. This is the force of the Spirit poured out and fashioned in courageous and generous self-denial. It is the life in the Spirit that can redeem, value, and demonstrate how our lives are woven together and sustained by ordinary people, often forgotten people, who do not appear on the front page of newspapers and magazines, nor on the grand catwalks of the latest show, but who without any doubt are in these very days writing the decisive events of our time. Doctors, nurses, supermarket employees, cleaners, caregivers, providers of transport, law and order enforcement personnel, volunteers, priests, religious men and women, and so very many others who have understood that no one reaches salvation by themselves. In the face of so much suffering, where the authentic development of our peoples is assessed, we experience the priestly prayer of Jesus, that they may all be
Quanta
one.
gente esercita oggi
How many
ogni
people
giorno
every
di
day
pazienza
are
e infonde
exercising
speranza,
patience and offering
avendo cura
hope,
di non
taking
seminare
care
panico, ma
to sow
corresponsabilità.
not panic, but
Quanti
shared
padri,
responsibility.
madri, nonni e nonni,
How many fathers,
insegnanti
mothers,
mostrano ai
grandparents, and
nostri bambini
teachers
con
are
gesti
showing our
piccoli e
children in
quotidiani
small, everyday
come
gestures
affrontare e
how
attraversare
to face up
una
to
crisi,
and navigate a
riadattando
crisis
abitudini
by adjusting their
alzando gli
routines,
sguardi e stimolando
lifting
la
their
preghiera.
gaze, and fostering prayer.
Quante persone pregano,
How many are
offrono e
praying,
intercedono per il bene
offering,
di tutti.
and interceding for the good of
La
all.
preghiera e il servizio
Prayer
silenzioso
and quiet service.
sono le nostre armi vincenti.
These are our victorious weapons.
Perché avete paura?
Why are
Non
you
avete ancora
afraid?
fede?
Have you yet no faith?
L'inizio della fede è saperci bisognosi di salvezza.
Faith begins when we
Non siamo
realize we are in need
autosufficienti,
of
da
salvation.
soli.
We are not self-sufficient.
Da soli affondiamo.
By
Abbiamo
ourselves,
bisogno
we
del
founder.
Signore come gli antichi naviganti delle stelle.
We need the Lord, like
Invitiamo
ancient
Gesù
navigators
nelle
needed the
barche delle
stars.
nostre vite.
Let us invite Jesus into the boats of our
Consegniamo le
lives.
nostre paure
Let us
perché
hand
Lui
over our
vinca.
fears to Him
Come
so that
discepoli
He can conquer them.
sperimenteremo che con
Like
Lui
the
a bordo
disciples, we will experience that with Him on board, there will be no
e questa è la
shipwreck,
forza di Dio.
because this is God's
Volgere il
strength,
bene tutto quello
turning
che
to
ci
the good
capita,
everything that happens
anche
to
le
us,
cose brutte.
even the bad
Egli
things.
porta il sereno nelle
He
nostre
brings
tempeste,
serenity into our
perché
storms,
con Dio la vita non muore mai.
because with God, life never dies.
Il Signore ci interpella e
The
in
Lord
mezzo alla
asks
nostra
us,
tempesta
and in the midst
ci
of our
invita a
tempest
risvegliare e
invites us
attivare
to
la
reawaken
solidarietà
and
e
put
la
into practice
speranza,
that solidarity and
capace
hope
di dare solidità,
capable of giving
sostegno
strength,
e significato
support,
a
and
queste
meaning
ore
to
in
these
cui
hours
tutto sembra
when
naufragare.
everything seems to be floundering.
Il Signore si risveglia per risvegliare
The Lord
e
awakens
ravvivare la nostra fede
so as to
pasquale.
reawaken and revive our Easter
Abbiamo
faith.
un'ancora.
We
Nella
have
sua
an
croce
anchor.
siamo stati salvati.
By His cross we have been
Abbiamo un
saved.
timone.
We have a rudder.
Nella sua croce
By
siamo
His
stati
cross we have been
riscattati.
redeemed.
Abbiamo una speranza.
We have a hope.
Nella sua croce siamo
By
stati
His cross
risanati
we
e
have been
abbracciati,
healed and
affinché
embraced,
niente e nessuno
so that nothing
ci
and no
separi dal
one
suo amore
can
redentore.
separate us from His redeeming love.
In mezzo all'isolamento nel quale
In the
stiamo
midst of
patendo la
isolation,
mancanza
when we are
degli
suffering
affetti
from a lack
e
of
degli
tenderness and
sperimentando la
opportunities to
mancanza
meet up,
di tante cose,
and we experience the loss of so many things,
ancora una volta
let us once
l'annuncio
again
che ci
listen
salva,
to the proclamation that saves
è
us.
risorto
He
e
is
vive
risen
accanto a noi.
and is living by
Il
our
Signore ci
side.
interpella dalla sua croce a ritrovare la vita che ci attende, a guardare verso coloro
The
che
Lord
ci
asks us from
reclamano,
His
a
cross to
rafforzare,
rediscover the life that awaits
riconoscere
us,
e incentivare
to
la
look
grazia che ci
towards those who look
Non
to us,
spegniamo
to
la
strengthen,
fiammella
recognize,
del
and foster the grace that
che
lives
mai
within
si
us.
ammalla, e lasciamo
Let us not
che
quench the
riaccenda la
wavering
speranza.
flame that never falters, and let us allow hope
Abbracciare la
to
sua
be
croce
rekindled.
significa trovare il coraggio
Embracing
di
His cross
abbracciare
means
tutte le
finding the courage to
contrarietà
embrace all
del
the
tempo
hardships of the
presente,
present time,
abbandonando per un momento il
abandoning for
nostro
a moment
affanno di
our
onnipotenza
eagerness for
e di
power
possesso
and
per dare
possessions
spazio alla
in order to make
creatività
room for the
che solo lo
creativity that
Spirito è
only the
capace di
Spirit
suscitare.
is capable of
Significa
inspiring.
trovare il coraggio di
It means
aprire spazi
finding the
dove
courage to
tutti
make room for the
possano
creativity
sentirsi
that only the
chiamati
Spirit is
e
able
permettere nuove
to
forme
inspire.
di ospitalità,
It means finding the courage to create spaces where
solidarietà.
everyone can recognize that they are called
Nella sua
and to
croce
allow new
siamo
forms of
stati
hospitality,
salvati
fraternity,
per
and
accogliere la
solidarity.
speranza e
By
lasciare
His cross
che
we have been
sia
saved,
essa in order to embrace hope, and let it strengthen and sustain all measures and all possible avenues for helping us protect ourselves and others. Embracing the Lord in order to embrace hope. This is the strength of faith, which frees us from fear and gives us hope. Why are you afraid? Have you yet no faith? Dear brothers and sisters, from this place that tells of Peter's rock-solid faith, I would like this evening to entrust all of you to the Lord through the intercession of Mary, health of the people, and star of the stormy sea. From this colonnade that embraces Rome and the world, may God's blessing come down upon you as a consoling embrace. Lord, bless the world. Give health to our bodies and comfort our hearts. You ask us not to be afraid, yet our faith is weak, Lord, and we are fearful. But you, Lord, do not leave us at the mercy of the storm. Tell us again, do not be afraid. And we, together with Peter, cast all our anxieties onto you, because we know that you care for us.